Good evening and welcome to this week's edition of Penn State Sports Night. I'm Ellie French.
And I'm Christian Kurapakis. In front of a jam-packed crowd at Rec Hall on Saturday, the Penn State women's volleyball team swept Maryland in 3 matches. Simone Lee led the way with 10 kills and 13 digs as the first-ranked Nittany Lions extended their record to 25-1 and 15-1 in Big Ten play. They'll host Indiana on Wednesday, November 15th at 7:30 for their final home match of the season.
The Penn State men's basketball team defeated the Fairleigh Dickinson Knights on Sunday at the Bryce Jordan Center by a score of 81-57. 5 Nittany Lions finished with double-figure scoring, but the charge was led by Tony Carr, who posted 7 assists, 4 rebounds, a career-high 3 steals, and 20 points. The team will continue their homestand on Wednesday as they take on Montana, with tip-off set for 7 p.m.
The Penn State women's basketball team earned its second straight victory of their season opening weekend thanks to an 84-70 win over Drexel on Sunday afternoon. Sophomore Jada Travascio-Green led the team with a career-high 31 points thanks to a career-high 7 three-pointers. That total also marked the 69th 30-point game in program history as she helped her squad kick off their season 2-0. Up next, the Lady Lions will travel to West Virginia on Wednesday to take on Marshall at 6 p.m.
In Saturday's 35-6 win over Rutgers, quarterback Trace McSorley extended his record streak to 25 straight games with at least 1 touchdown pass. He continued to make his mark in the record books as well, passing former Penn State quarterback Darrell Clark as Penn State's all-time leader in touchdowns. McSorley will look to build on that record this Saturday when he and the Nittany Lions host Nebraska at Beaver Stadium.
Former Toronto Blue Jays and Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Roy Halladay passed away last Tuesday when a small plane he was piloting crashed off the coast of Florida. He was just 40 years old. In memory of one of the best pitchers of the 21st century, Penn State Sports Night takes you through his storied career in a video tribute. Drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays with the 17th overall pick of the 1995 MLB Draft, Roy Halladay was tailor-made for a baseball career full of dominance. At just 21 years old, he made his major league debut in 1998 and came within 1 out of a no-hitter in just his second major league career start. He would have to wait before he could take the league by storm, however, as he struggled mightily in the 2000 season. After posting a 10.63 ERA in 16 games that year, Toronto sent Halladay to the minors, where he would work to reinvent himself. He returned to the majors in 2000, and by 2002, the sport was introduced to a pitcher who dominated the era. He finished that year a 19-game winner. The following year, he beat out future Hall of Famer Pedro Martinez and Esteban Loaiza for his first career Cy Young Award. By the time his career in Toronto came to an end, Halladay earned 6 trips to the All-Star game and won 148 games, the second most by any American League starter from 1998 to 2009. In December of 2009, the Philadelphia Phillies brought in baseball's premier ace when they traded for Halladay in the offseason. Looking back, that blockbuster trade was worth making for the franchise.
A perfect game! Roy Halladay has thrown the second perfect game in Philadelphia Phillies history.
Halladay tossed the 20th perfect game in baseball history, the first of many accomplishments that year. He finished his first season with the Phillies with 21 wins and a 2.44 ERA, good enough for the National League Cy Young Award. For the perfect icing on the cake filled with what was a tremendous season, he did the unthinkable in Game 1 of the National League Division Series against the Cincinnati Reds.
2, a bouncer, Ruiz, in time! Roy Halladay has thrown a no-hitter!
Halladay's dominance as a full-time starter in the league was second to none. From 2002 to 2011, his 2,194 2/3 innings pitched was the second in the majors, as he led the league in innings pitched 4 times during that 10-year stretch. His 170 wins, 63 complete games, 18 shutouts, and 2.97 ERA were the best marks by any starter with at least 300 games started in that time. Halladay also saw 17.2% of his starts end in a complete game, marking the greatest rate in the history of baseball.
And witness the master wielding his magic tonight against the Yankees. Roy Halladay, a complete game victory.
He finished his career with 203 wins and leaves us all with the memory of one of the biggest workhorses the game has ever seen. A celebration of life service for Halladay will take place at Spectrum Field in Clearwater, Florida on Tuesday beginning at 4 p.m. The event is open to the public with a maximum capacity of 8,000 guests.
That'll do it for us, but stay tuned for more Penn State Sports Night as Matt Freiler, Jeff Morgan, and Jordan Kaplan are standing by to give us an update on what's happening in the college football world.
Hello and welcome to our college football segment on Penn State Sports Night, joined by Jeff Morgan, Jordan Calfone. I'm Matt Freiler. Well, 2 more playoff elimination games are in the books. On Saturday night, Miami throttled Notre Dame to remain unbeaten, and Oklahoma took care of TCU. Also for Georgia, a familiar feeling of letdown as the Dogs lose big on the road to Auburn. Now, we want to let all our viewers know that at the time of this filming, the new CFP rankings have not yet been released, but that's okay because we have our own 2-person committee here on Penn State Sports Night to give you their top 4 and their first 2 out. So, Jeff, who's in?
All right, so I'm going to lead off with number 1, Alabama. They're just the best team in the country to me. You can't go wrong with that. Then I have number 2, Miami. Miami's really hot right now, and they just came off a fresh win against Notre Dame. At 3, I go with Clemson. Now, Clemson will have to play Miami in the ACC championship game, so that will decide which one of those 2 teams stays in my top 4. But for right now, they're both in. Then I go to Oklahoma at number 4. Baker Mayfield is the best quarterback in the country right now, and they've been playing really well. At 5, I go to Wisconsin. They're an undefeated team, but they haven't really played anyone. So the Big Ten championship game is really what I'm waiting to see if they can beat a good opponent. So that way they'll make it into my top 4. They'll probably replace either Miami or Clemson. At 6, we're going to go to Georgia, who just lost to Auburn. So they dropped from 1 to 6 in my rankings.
So Jeff moving the Canes all the way up to number 2. Also keeps Georgia ranked above Auburn despite that head-to-head. So, Jordan, let's see what you're different.
Sure. So my number 1, of course, is Alabama, the clear-cut favorite in this college football season. Number 2, I have Boomer Sooner, have the Oklahoma Sooners. Baker Mayfield, front runner in the Heisman race right now, and look for him to keep moving this team forward. Number 3, the U, Miami, coming off of a big win against Notre Dame that really put the critics to bed. And number 4, Clemson. As Jeff said, Clemson and Miami will face off in the ACC championship game. So one of these teams eventually will not be in this conversation, but for now, that's how it is. Number 5, we've got Auburn, who had a highlight win against the Georgia Bulldogs, which I think puts them above Georgia, and they will face off against Alabama in the world-famous Iron Bowl next week. And number 6, the Wisconsin Badgers. Wisconsin still has not played anyone super special yet. It will come down to the Big Ten championship game, and if they can win that, then they should definitely be in the top 4.
So Jordan dropping Georgia all the way out of the top 6 and moving Auburn up to number 5. We'll have to see if the committee agrees when those rankings are released. So now moving on to a new segment, our true-false segment. How this works, I'll give you guys both a statement. You can tell me if you think it's going to be true or false. So our first question here, Michigan will upset Wisconsin. True or false, Jeff?
So I have true coming in here. So I think Michigan's going to be the best team that Wisconsin's played all year. And I don't know if Wisconsin's really ready for that style of defense to come in there and blow up that Wisconsin offense. So I have Michigan beating Wisconsin in that game.
I really think that this is false. Michigan's offense is looking better than it has all season, but the name of the game with Wisconsin is consistency. Jonathan Taylor right now is the best running back in the Big Ten, unpopular opinion, but I really think that he's going to carry this team. Hornibrook is going to have a massive game along with their depleted defense, but in the end, this will be the biggest test of the season for Wisconsin, but I think that they will pull out the win.
So Jeff, you picked the Badgers to lose for the first time. Jordan thinks they're going to keep moving on and staying relevant. Now to a little more statistical true or false. We're going to throw this one up here. Saquon Barkley, 899 yards right now, 35 yards last week. Will he hit 1,000 versus Nebraska? True or false?
So I'm going to go with true with this one. I think it's very well likely to be Barkley's last game in Beaver Stadium. So I think Franklin's just going to feed him. I think he's going to have 25 carries at the end of this one. He's probably going to have 3 touchdowns. He's going to return every kick, every punt. He's going to be in the NFL next year. You're probably going to see him go top 5 in the draft. So why not send him out in front of his home crowd with a good 1,000-yard season? Probably going to have 200 yards on the game, in my opinion. So I think that he is easily going to reach the 1,000-yard mark versus Nebraska at home.
What do you think, Jordan? Barkley 1,000 club?
Yes, true for sure. I say true because Nebraska's defense has been struggling all season. If you look at the statistics, 6 out of their past 10 games that they have played, they have let the opposing offense score at least 30 points, and a vast majority of those games were 40 or 50 points scored against them. So I really think that James Franklin will feed Saquon Barkley the ball. They will put him in different situations like they did earlier on in the season, maybe coming in on end arounds or putting him in the slot a little bit to make it a little bit more unorthodox. But in the end, I really think that he will reach that 1,000-yard mark.
So a consensus in that one. Both of our guys think Saquon Barkley will amass 1,000 yards for the season. Once again, guys, just needs 101 yards to accomplish that one against Nebraska. So now to our next true or false. UCF, the Golden Knights, kind of carrying that torch for the group of 5 out in front right now. They have a big contest looming in 2 weeks on Black Friday against USF. They have to go to Philadelphia this weekend to visit Temple. The Owls coming off 2 straight wins, also fighting for bowl eligibility. So true or false, Jeff? Unbeaten UCF falls in a trap game at Temple this week.
So I'm going to go with false on this one. Now, Lincoln Financial Field is a tough place to play if you're playing on Sunday. Too bad Temple plays on Saturday, so I don't really see UCF coming in there and being intimidated by a crowd of maybe 25,000. They're going to be playing in front of a high school crowd for probably some of these players when they used to play back in high school. So to me, it's not a trap game. They're going to roll, and then we'll see them on Black Friday.
What do you think, Jordan?
I definitely also think that this is false. If this was the Temple Owls team from last year, I think that this would be a completely different conversation. Coach Matt Rule, who's now the head coach at Baylor, and Tyler Matakevich, a standout defensive middle linebacker who really carried this team forward, almost had them in a New Year's Six Bowl at one point. I really don't think that this Temple team this year has what it takes to take down Scott Frost's UCF Knights, but it will be an interesting game for sure.
So neither of you took the bait on that one. I think it's safe to say we all want to see that UCF-USF showdown on Black Friday. Definitely going to be a fun one to watch if UCF stays undefeated. Now transitioning to our final segment. Guys, it's time for bold predictions here on PSSN. So Jordan, go ahead, you start. Actually, we're going to go with Jeff first, so our graphics are in line. Jeff, you go ahead. Give me your bold prediction.
So my bold prediction, sorry to all the Penn State fans, Ohio State will be in the college football playoffs. Now, before you call me crazy, before you throw me out of here, now look at this. Auburn and Georgia both have to play Alabama, which will knock them out of the rankings. Clemson and Miami have to play each other, which will knock one of them out. And then you see Wisconsin play Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. I think Ohio State is a 2-loss team that will have a very strong win. Probably Wisconsin will be in the top 4 at the time that they play the college football, or they play the Big Ten championship game, which will put them with 2 teams that they've played in the top 4, and they've won over them. So I think Ohio State actually has a chance to make the college football playoffs.
Now, before we get to yours, Jordan, I want to ask you a question, Jeff. So last year, the Big Ten champion with 2 losses was Penn State. They were not able to get in. Ohio State, who was a 1-loss at-large, did get in. So if you have a scenario this season where Ohio State is a 2-loss Big Ten champion, and Wisconsin's only loss comes to Ohio State in that Big Ten championship game, how do you justify putting Ohio State over Wisconsin?
So part of that is I actually have Wisconsin losing to Michigan earlier in the season. If they don't lose to Michigan, might happen, and they are within the top 4, I think Ohio State has the better overall resume. Ohio State will be the only team other than Iowa, which I don't believe is a very strong team, that Wisconsin has played. So I think that you're going to see Ohio State have Wisconsin as a top 4, Penn State as a top 4. And then if you look at Penn State's resume last year, it probably wasn't as strong as Ohio State's. And the loss to Penn State became less of a value, less of a detriment to Ohio State as the season went on and Penn State became a higher and higher seed. So it looked not as bad to the committee when they were deciding who makes it. Plus, the committee does love Ohio State since they won as that 4 seed in the beginning. So they have a soft spot for Ohio State.
So Jeff certainly making a bold call. Let's see if you can top that, Jordan. What's your bold prediction?
My bold prediction is geared more towards this week. Texas Tech over TCU. Texas Tech has been an incredibly inconsistent team this year, but they've got a great quarterback, Nick Shimonek, and a great coach, Coach Kingsbury, who have a very high-powered offense against a TCU defense that's been okay. but in big moments, they really have struggled like they did last week against Oklahoma. So I really think that this will be a shootout, just like Bedlam. This is going to be a very high-scoring game, very limited defense, what we all love to see. So I really think that Texas Tech will pull out the W over TCU.
So Jordan taking the Red Raiders. Nobody just waltzes into Lubbock and comes out with a victory. Texas Tech's only 2 wins, though, against Kansas and Baylor since September 30th. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up here on Penn State Sports Night for our college football segment. Jeff Morgan, Jordan Calfone, thanks for joining us. Coming up next is Penn State basketball with Matt Lingerman and Jack Hirsch.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Matt Lingerman alongside Jack Hirsch, and we're here to talk some Penn State hoops. Jack, this is a team with high expectations this year, and after double-digit wins over Campbell and Fairleigh Dickinson this weekend, it kind of was clear that Tony Carr is going to be a guy that's going to lead this team. What jumps has he made since his freshman year?
Well, I mean, he got the experience to go to California and participate in that Nike basketball camp with 20 of the best college basketball players in the country. So there's a lot of leadership that he gets, and toward the end of last year, you could kind of see that this was becoming Tony Carr's team, and he was the leader of this team more so than Shep Gardner, who struggled at times last year, and even so, he's known as a three-point shooter, but he's never had over a season of over 40% three-point shooting, and you could see that this past Sunday when they played against Fairleigh Dickinson, and Garner was 0 for 7 from the field. Didn't really make much of an impact, yet Tony Carr had 20 points, had big numbers on the boards, on the assists, and then that huge game for Carr against Campbell when he had 33 points, 9 rebounds, and 7 assists. So he's made huge strides. Obviously, these numbers are huge in comparison to what he did last year as a freshman, but he's only going to grow, and he just keeps getting more and more opportunities. I mean, he put up 23 shots against Campbell, so you can see he's getting the opportunities and succeeding in them.
And Jack, you mentioned obviously alongside Shep Gardner, Tony Carr, Josh Reeves, they have a pretty experienced and deep backcourt, but also in the front court they have a few guys that can be good on both sides of the floor, anchored by Mike Watkins. What have you seen out of Mike Watkins?
Well, I mean, what we did see is how bad they were without Mike Watkins against Campbell. Yes, they won by, I think, 8 points or 10 points or whatever it was, but that game was much closer than it should have been. So when he is unable to play, it's not good for their defense. Satchel Pierce, the transfer from Virginia, got some time and really was a little shaky. He hasn't played in a year because he sat out last year. He looked slow. He wasn't that great shooting free throws. And then Julian Moore played 2 minutes, picked up 2 fouls against Fairleigh Dickinson on Sunday. So you need Mike Watkins to be successful. He averaged 8 boards last year for this team. So he's a big part of the rebounding game, and he's a big part on defense. We saw that when he had 8 blocks in that Big Ten Big Ten tournament game last year against Nebraska.
And you know, we talk about the experience and the depth they have, both in the front court and the back court. But this is head coach Pat Chambers' 7th year with the program. He's got 2 of the best recruiting classes in Penn State program history. But at the same time, he's below 500 with Penn State. He's never finished above 10th in the Big Ten. If they don't make the big dance this year, could this be his last year?
Yeah, I think this is his last shot because he's under 500, like you said. He's never made so much as an NIT tournament. When Ed DeShellis left, they came off an NCAA tournament appearance. They weren't able to do anything, even with some of those pieces. Obviously, they lost a guy like Taylor Battle, and it's really hard to lose a guy like Taylor Battle. But Chambers has had guys like Garner, like Brandon Taylor, and he hasn't been able to do anything. So this is his last chance. I don't even think an NIT appearance saves his job. He's got an opportunity here with a soft non-conference schedule to make some noise and build his resume heading into those 2 games in December against Iowa and Wisconsin, which open up the Big Ten season. So he's got to take advantage of that. We'll see in the Legends Classic when they get a chance to play a good team, possibly if they were able to beat Pitt and play Texas A&M, the number 25 ranked team in the country. So, but he's got to put results on the board this year.
And Jack, you mentioned the non-conference schedule not super hard. They're going to have 6 more non-conference games before they open Big Ten play on December 2nd at Iowa. For Jack Hirsch, I'm Matt Lingerman. We now go to Summer Thomas, Jason Marcus, and DJ Bauer for an NFL recap.
Welcome back to Penn State Sports Night. I'm Summer Thomas alongside DJ Bauer and Jason Marcus here to talk about Week 10 of the NFL and some headlines that have come up. So Ezekiel Elliott's suspension has been reinstated, and he now will no longer be able to play until Week 16 when the Cowboys face the Seahawks. So what do you guys think this does to the Cowboys' playoff chances?
Well, it definitely puts a damper on things, that's for sure. The Cowboys, they're 5-4. They're falling a little bit. We just had that, bad loss to Atlanta. It just goes to show how much of a quality player they need, like someone like Ezekiel Elliott on that team. If they really want to make a shot for the playoffs, they need people to step up. They still have a quality quarterback in Dak Prescott, so that's fine. The offensive line has become an issue. In years past, the Cowboys have had a dominant offensive line. This year, it has not nearly been the same. Chaz Green led up 6 sacks. You can't do that. If you want to win games, you absolutely cannot do that. They need the defense to step up. I just don't see them making it all the way with Ezekiel Elliott out for the rest of the season. Just with all the talent in the NFC there is, the Seahawks, the Panthers, the Lions, they're all vying for those wild card spots too. So in the end, I think it's not going to be enough, but we can see if this Cowboys team is resilient enough to do it.
Yeah, obviously without Ezekiel Elliott, it hurts the Cowboys a lot. Like you were saying, DJ, it's all on the shoulders of Dak Prescott now, so teams really just kind of have to stop him. But if they can find a way to secure that offensive line, to get back to the level that they were playing at last year, if you look at their schedule, there is a chance for them to find a way into that wild card spot and maybe win the division, but that'll be a long shot. Obviously, they play the Eagles this week. That's going to be a very difficult game. But going forward, they have games against the Giants and the Redskins and a winnable game against the Raiders, who are very inconsistent, and the Chargers. So there's a lot of winnable games in there. It's a matter of, can they figure out how to win games with just Dak Prescott? So is it possible? Yes, but it'll definitely be a long road.
Speaking of the playoffs, right now the playoff picture in the AFC and NFC is all over the place. So right now, as it stands at the end of Week 10, I have the Patriots number 1 in the AFC, followed by the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Jaguars, the Titans, and the Bills. What do you guys think of that? And are there any other teams you think are going to creep up? Or?
Well, personally, I believe those are going to be the 6. Even though the Bills are starting to slip a little bit, they had that terrible loss against New Orleans. If they can recuperate and get it back together, they're still a playoff team. It's not a sure thing, though. I'm pretty confident in the other 5, but if one team were to fall out, I would pick the Bills. And there's not that much talent in the AFC that can overtake them. The Raiders are a possibility, but they need to be more consistent. The Dolphins are also a possibility, but you never know with them. And the Ravens really need to step it up on offense if they want to have a chance. So it's not a sure thing, but I think that the 6 teams that are in right now are looking good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think those are going to be the 6 teams that end up making it. We were talking about the Cowboys just a minute ago. How much would they have loved to be in this AFC conference right now? Because obviously it's far more competitive than the NFC. If they were in the AFC, probably a good chance they make the playoffs even without Ezekiel Elliott. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And looking at the AFC right now, you think the Bills might fall out? I think if anyone's going to fall out of those 6 that Summer mentioned, I think it's the Titans. I think they're very inconsistent, but it's really a toss-up. I think out of any 2 teams that could enter the playoff fold, I think you're looking at the Raiders and you're looking at the Ravens, and I'll tell you why. Obviously, the Raiders are a very talented team. Derek Carr is one of the best young quarterbacks in the league. They have a lot of issues that they need to shore up. But like we were talking about with the Cowboys, if they can figure out those issues quick enough, I think Derek Carr has the capability to lead this team to a wild card, a playoff berth. And if they get in the playoffs, anything can happen. As far as the Ravens go, I like Joe Flacco and I like John Harbaugh. They have a lot of experience in the postseason. They know how to win when they get there, and I think if they can find a way to win couple key games down the stretch here, make that late playoff berth, then you never know what could happen in the postseason.
Definitely agree. Now onto the NFC. So right now I have the Eagles as number 1, the Saints as 2, Vikings as 3, the Rams as 4, Seahawks as 5, and the Lions as 6. Now, the NFC playoff picture is definitely up for debate a lot more, especially with those last 2 wild card picks. And there are a lot of other teams that could come into the fold, like the Cowboys. So what do you guys think of that 6, and are there any other teams that are going to come up?
I actually think that those are the 6 that are going to make it, but it's not a sure thing, of course. I mean, the Eagles are obviously going to make it. The Saints, the Vikings, and the Rams have looked unstoppable. And, of course, Seattle is just a playoff team. When they get there, they cause destruction. So I think Seattle's going to make it. The 6th spot, yet again, I think is the one that's most contested. And I agree with the Lions because I think Matthew Stafford is a talented guy.
and the defense has been stepping up as well. But there are definitely other possibilities. We talked about Dallas. Even without Ezekiel Elliott, I think they still have a decent shot. Carolina is still in the conversation. Cam Newton is as good as any of the quarterbacks in the game, even though the team has looked shaky from time to time. If they can put it together, then they've got a good chance for the playoffs. Atlanta has fallen a little bit lately, but they got a nice rejuvenation with that big win over Dallas, so they're certainly still in the conversation. And even the Redskins at 4-5, they're a game behind everybody else, but if Kirk Cousins can keep playing the way that he's been playing, the Redskins still have a good shot as well.
So I think the Eagles and the Saints are both locks to win their respective divisions. I think they're far and above the superior teams in their divisions, but it's the NFC West and the NFC North that are really interesting to me. Out of the NFC West, I think both the Rams and the Seahawks will make the playoffs. It's all about who is going to win the division and get that home playoff game, right? So as it stands right now, the Rams are the superior team. But if you look ahead at their schedule, they have a really tough schedule coming up. And the Seattle, I know they just lost Richard Sherman for the year. They have a lot of really bad injuries and a lot of problems like a lot of the NFL does. But like I said, if they can get to the postseason, they're a very dangerous team, especially at home. And you do not want to play Seattle at home in the postseason. As far as the NFC North goes, I think it's a two-way competition between the Lions and the Vikings. I think the Vikings are the better team. I think they'll end up winning that division, but I see the Lions getting in as that 6th seed. So that's what I think will happen. But it'll be interesting to see because, like we were saying, there's so much competition in the NFC that anything could really happen.
All right, so now on to some coaches that are in the hot seat right now. There's Chuck Pagano, Ben McAdoo, and Marvin Lewis. What do you guys think about those guys, and how hotly contested are their jobs right now?
I think that Chuck Pagano is the number one name on that list. The Indianapolis Colts have proven that they are nothing without Andrew Luck. They're 3-7, one of the worst teams in the NFL, and even with Jacoby Brissett, who's been doing an okay job as the backup quarterback, they're still not finding ways to win games. And a lot of that comes down to coaching. Chuck Pagano has proven that he is not the guy that they need to call plays for that offense or for that defense. He's just been too weak as a coach, in my opinion, to get the Colts anywhere. If you want to take a look at really what I think is Chuck Pagano's career in Indianapolis, go back 2 years to that Sunday night game against the Patriots on that botched fake punt that Griff Whalen was not supposed to snap that. Obviously communication error right there, and I think that perfectly displays what kind of coaching career Pagano has had in Indianapolis. So if the Colts continue their losing ways, expect Pagano to be out of Indianapolis by season's end.
Yeah, head coach Ben McAdoo is obviously on the hot seat. He seems to have lost the locker room. Chuck Pagano, like you said, again, someone who's probably not going to be looking for another job at the end of the year. Marvin Lewis is really interesting to me because he's the second most tenured coach in the NFL. He's been with Cincinnati for a long time, but I think this is the year that they finally cut him. And if anyone's going to find a job, it's going to be Marvin Lewis as soon as he's gone. But if there's one other sleeper pick that you need to look out for, it's Buccaneers head coach Dirk Cutter. Coming into the season, the Buccaneers looked like they were supposed to be contenders for this division. Hasn't panned out that way, so look for some repercussions at the end of this year.
Yeah, we should definitely keep in mind that Marvin Lewis has not won a playoff game for the Bengals since he has been there in as many years. So that's definitely something to consider when thinking about whether or not he should stay. All right, well, that'll be all for Penn State Sports Night. I'm Summer Thomas alongside DJ Bauer and Jason Marcus. We'll see you guys next week.